Hello, gentlemen. My name is Rani Nsubuga, and this is my persuasive speech on a subject entitled Abstinence is More Effective Than Condom Use. Abstinence is more effective than condom use. I'll begin my speech with an introduction. The purpose of my presentation is to convince you that abstinence from sex is a better method of protection against AIDS and STDs compared to condom usage. And I base my argument on government data, statistics, and success stories from countries and individuals that have been successful in curbing the pandemic through this method. While there are so many methods in protection against AIDS and diseases, I believe this is the best method to curb the pandemic. We live in a society where sex is glorified. When you turn on the television, there is sex. When you listen to the radio, there is sex. When you open the newspapers, there is sex. When you go on the internet, there is sex. To the extent that when somebody is trying to promote sunglasses, they're going to use a naked woman. Because sex is glamorous. Sex is glorious. Sex is wonderful. And this is a very old principle that has worked in the days of old until today. People are using sex. However, the marketeers, the marketing industry has forgotten to tell us that there is a window of error. 98% of the condoms are not effective. In my country, we discovered some people were using condoms and they were getting AIDS because 2%, there is a mistake, there's an error of 2%. If 98% is effective, 2% is not effective. So why should I risk my life based on 2%? Abstinence is a better method to curb AIDS and STDs. And now the question is, what is abstinence? Abstinence is a method where we teach sex education, promoting people to live to avoid sex until they're married. And if you're married, I encourage you to. This method encourages for you to have one partner. One partner. Will be faithful to one partner. And if you're not married, you wait until you get married. That is the abstinence method. And I want to argue that there's so many advantages embedded in this approach. And while there are so many critics that are criticizing this approach, thinking that this approach only promotes religious ideologies. They think that abstinence is religious. So the government and some organizations have tried to bash abstinence. But to me, I think it is still effective because it has a track record of success. And it's worth looking into. Now, based on the Bamidi State University Student Center for Health and Counseling highlights, they highlight a number of advantages that lie in this method. And the first advantage that they advocate for is focus. Students will focus on education. And if you're a worker, you'll focus on your job. It is easier to focus on what you're doing. After all, it's what you are, it's your purpose. And if you're a student, that's why you're in college to study. So focus is very key. Number two, abstinence leads to better health. You'll probably have fewer physical and emotional concerns. Number three, there is certainty, where if a relationship lasts without sex, there is a good chance that this relationship will be stronger. If a relationship is built on sex, when sex fades, the relationship fades. But if the relationship is built on love and not sex, there is going to be longevity. And what is going to bring about this longevity? Abstinence and being faithful to one partner. And also there is confidence. You will know that the other person likes you for who you are and not just for what you bring on the table. There is freedom from worry. You'll have no concerns about unintended pregnancies or sexual transmitted infections. There is a good example. You become a good example to the young ones, to your siblings and to your children. If you're abstaining, that means your children are going to look at you and follow that mannerism. And likewise, the society will build a generation that is not promiscuous. And there's also simplicity. You won't have to worry about birth control. So many lists. So I want to argue based on a country where I come from, Uganda. Uganda is one of the many countries one of the few African countries where the rate of HIV infection has dropped from 40% to 6%. Based on United Nations data, UNAIDS.org, an organization in the world that fights against AIDS, they said that in as a matter of fact, they said that in early 1990s, about 5%, they wrote about 5% in 2001. However, prior to that, it was about 40%. And the reason why Uganda has been so successful in the fight against AIDS is because we've preached this message of abstinence. And we've preached ABC. We've advocated in the villages, in the rural places, ABC. A is for abstinence. B is be faithful. And C is use condoms as the last resort. Abstinence, be faithful, and use condoms as the last resort. And when we embarked on this campaign, we saw a tremendous growth. And that's why that was the secret behind the rate of infection dropping from 40% to 6%. And as I conclude my speech, gentlemen, I want to argue that as a Ugandan by origin and a US citizen by naturalization, I was one of the few leading advocates of this abstinence approach. And in the mid-90s, our country's population comprised of 70% of youth. Our population, 70% were youth. However, 40% were infected of AIDS. And out of the 40%, 35% were orphans due to AIDS. And 30% had, if you are not affected, you are infected. And then 70% of the country was under the problem of AIDS. However, we folded our sleeves and preached a message of abstinence, be faithful to one partner, and use condoms. And today, the world is boasting of Uganda's success, not knowing that it's about abstinence. So I want to argue, gentlemen, as I finish, saying by this, our president of Uganda, he was called by the United Nations to receive an award. President Bush gave him an award because of Uganda's success. And this is what he said in his speech. He said, to fight this epidemic, the women must be empowered to take decisions about their sexual lives. And women in Uganda have been empowered and participate today at all levels of government. This has made them more assertive of their rights than ever before. To fight AIDS effectively, we must empower women. Our success stories is a bedrock of empowerment. We believed in women. We empowered the women. Let's believe in our girls. Let's empower our children. Let's empower our daughters. And let's tell them, abstain from sex. And that is the best way you're going to fight AIDS. And if we do that in Baltimore, where the rate of infection is the highest in the US, I believe we shall have a better community. Brothers, gentlemen, I strongly believe abstinence is the best way we can overcome STDs. And if you are married, stick to one partner, and we shall have a better nation, a better world. Thank you so much.